Everybody knows me. I'm Terry Rankin, the president of the Alliance. And here we have today with us is Jeff Spear. And Jeff has had a long career in food and beverage and working in emerging countries to support the development of brands within the country for export and for export. Jeff is the author of 3 cookbooks, his most recent being My Life in Gluttony, a retrospective of his culinary adventures worldwide. He did a stint in Lebanon in what year?
It was 5-6 years ago. I don't recall the year.
Okay, recently, where he fell in love with the country and the food. So I'm just going to let Jeff take it away, and he has a lot of stuff planned for us today. So Jeff, take it away.
Thanks, Terry. So first, I want to thank Soha and Nabil for their tour of Lebanon that they presented. What was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago? A couple of things to know. One, in Jacksonville is the 10th largest Middle Eastern population in America. And so when I was actually researching for Lebanese cuisine, it was amazing how much information and how much food I could find here. There are lots of great restaurants, and if you got the recipe packet, the last page has the list of the markets and the list of the restaurants that are all pretty good. Now I use, one of the markets is listed as Hallas, and Hallas is the one that I prefer. But I want to talk about Lebanon culinary a little bit, but just to wet my whistle while we're going, I'm going to introduce you. I don't know if you've ever heard, this is stuff called arak. I think Soha may have mentioned it. Arak is an anise spirit. It's clear in the bottle. Now, there are a number of brands that here in Jacksonville, there are a number of brands you can find in the stores. This one I got from Riverside Liquors. Total Wine has a different one, but it's clear. But I like it on ice, but when it pours clear, it immediately turns milky. And in Lebanon, they pour it without ice, and then they just add a little bit of water, and it really goes milky. But it's wonderful stuff. So just to start out the evening, I trust you've all got a glass of wine or something. We're going to start out with the Zatar spring rolls. Zatar spring rolls, this is basically, it's a very easy thing to make. It's made with halloumi. Now, this is the brand of halloumi that I found today in the store. It's basically, it's about 1 inch thick, and it's what you want to do is you cut it in half lengthwise, and then you cut it into 4 even strips. And so you end up with 8 pieces that are about the size of your finger. Take spring roll wrappers. Spring roll wrappers you can get in Asian grocery stores. They're usually in the freezer case, and you just let them defrost, and they're very easy to handle. And I believe you can see, I'm laying it with the point towards me. I'm taking the halloumi strip, I'm putting it about 1/3 of the way away from the corner. I'm adding some fresh chopped mint. Now, when I tested this recipe wasn't mine originally. When I tested it, the amount of mint you use makes a difference. And so you want to just see what suits your taste. But anyway, you put the mint in there, and then you roll this up just by, as I get it where it's holding on. Then I take a little bit of water and you dampen corners and make sure this is nice and damp. Everybody, I gather there's some of you that are actually doing it while we're going. One package makes 8, so I had 2 packs, I made 16. So I made 12 of them or 13 of them before we started, because otherwise we'd be here all night. So I've got the wrapper. The point is towards me, okay? Taking some of the mint, sprinkling it in the front of the cheese, like that. No matter which side, with both sides. The water down, if you make sure that it's good and damp, when you roll it up, it will stick. And what I do is wherever the last bit of the point is, I put that down, face down onto the tray so that it doesn't unravel. So I've got this tray full. So what you do is on each one, I've already done some of these. So you brush each with oil. And you need to have enough oil down so that when you sprinkle it with the Zatar, it sticks. And Zatar. Now Zatar is a blend. It's a Middle Eastern spice. It tends to be a blend of oregano, thyme, marjoram. It can have toasted sesame seeds in it, salt, and sumac. I'll talk about sumac in a minute. But Zatar it's a blend. It's like curry. Depending on who's making it, the blend can differ. So there's a restaurant here in Jacksonville called Rue Saint Marc, and he makes his own Zatar, and it's not the same as what you get in the store. So I'm just sprinkling a little bit of Zatar over top on each one, like that. Okay. Okay. So now these, you can eat them by themselves. I'm going to make the Lebna dip next because you can dip these in the Lebna dip. So Lebna is basically, it's like Greek yogurt. It's a thick white yogurt, or a thick white dairy product. I really like garlic, and whenever a recipe calls for 2 cloves garlic, I put in 4. There's a technique called pasting when you work with garlic. I don't know if you're familiar with it. But anyway, you want to chop it up a bit. Take a little bit of sea salt. Sea salt works like sandpaper. And you take the edge of the knife with the sea salt and you drag it. And you're basically crushing the garlic with the side of the knife. And you just keep on going at it. You'll see that it starts getting translucent. It starts getting thinner and pastier. And for this recipe, it doesn't have to be a perfectly smooth paste, but you don't want to have any big chunks. And you'll feel it requires some practice. I mean, the first few times you do it, you may not be comfortable, but anyway, pasted garlic. So you take the Lebna, you add the pasted garlic, you add, I tend to use kosher salt these days, but you can use table salt. You add a 1/4 teaspoon of that. That's just a little bit.
Just a tiny.
I've already chopped my cucumber. You want to make sure when you're using the cucumber, English cucumber is better than the regular ones, but the store-bought ones are cheaper. Whichever you use, you want to take a spoon and scrape out the seeds. 1. There's 2. I actually thought this was going to be too much, but it's actually quite good. And then you just mix this up. Now, I always recommend making this in advance and sticking it in the fridge so the flavors can melt. I find that at the beginning, you start tasting, you taste the garlic right away, or you taste the mint right away, and it doesn't have a chance to kind of everything merge together. So just so you know, the Zatar spring rolls are in the oven. You'll get to see them when they come out. And we've just made the Lebna dip. So I'm just going to transfer this. Ultimately, by the way, everything that we're doing tonight is leading up to, you may remember that Soha talked about this Lebanese tradition called meza. And meza is a table just jam-packed with food. And it goes to the Lebanese hospitality. They're very hospitable. They look after people when they come to visit. And so we're setting up a table. We're going to have a table full of stuff by the time tonight we're finished cooking. Okay. All right, everybody following so far? So let me tell you a little bit about mezza. When I was in Lebanon, I had two lasting experiences. The first, I was taken to an area in Beirut, which is a street full of nightclubs. And these are sizable facilities. The one we went to had 2 stories. It fit a lot of people. Downstairs was just a restaurant and coffee shop. Upstairs was a restaurant and a stage. And they had these guys playing stringed instruments that I had never seen before. And there was a guy running around passing out hookahs. And if you had a hookah already, he's making sure your coals are hot, and he's running around. And he had tongs like this, but they were much longer. And he'd be running up and down the aisle and clapping them together and making noise to go with the music. And then the food showed up. But the food showed up, and there was hummus, Lebanese sausage. It's called suja. And there were foods that I have no idea what they were, but they were fabulous. And eating and drinking and listening to the music and watching all of these people, and there were a lot of the tables were long communal tables that seated about 50 people, and people were having celebrations of one sort or the other, and the hookahs are running around, and it's just this joyous cacophony of stuff going on, and it was really quite remarkable. The second, I was invited to a colleague's house for dinner. And I've never seen anyone put out so much food for so few people on one table. And the generosity was incredible. One of the foods that is, I don't know if it's in other cultures, but it's certainly part of Lebanese culture. It's called toum, spelled T-O-U-M. And it is a garlic and oil, it's emulsified nice and oil. You make it in a food processor like mayonnaise, and you've got garlic and you drizzle the oil in, and it comes up with this really nice, almost snow white paste. And I got to tell you, when you have that, if you like garlic, remember I like garlic. If you have that and you put a little bit of it on some of the foods you're eating, it's fabulous. I have yet to make it. When I was invited to that dinner, they were going to show me, but it was already made by the time I got there. But this concept of mezza is really fabulous. And when you get a chance to go to Lebanon, you want to experience this. And I'm sure there are restaurants that will accommodate you.
Jeff, is this growing?
Yeah. Okay, so can I hold that for a second? The rolls just came out of the oven onto a plate. By the way, the thing about halloumi cheese is halloumi has a very, very high melting point, and so it stays pretty much solid in the whole baking process. The next dish I'm going to make is hummus. I'm sure most of you know what it is. Whether you made it or not, I don't know. But it's a very, very simple dish to make, and the fact that it has proliferated in the grocery stores, I find surprising, because in the time it takes me to go to the grocery store, buy it, and bring it home, I can make it for myself. And I can control the ingredients, and I can make it fresh, and it's wonderful. So to make hummus, first off, I wanted to show you, there are 2 brands of Lebanese products that you can find in the supermarkets. This is Zayed, this is one, and the other is called Cortas, C-O-R-T-A-S. Cortas didn't have a can this size, not in the store I was in. I think they were sold out. But Cortas and Zayed are both authentic Lebanese producers. I've been to their factories. It's pretty amazing. But anyway, I wanted to show you that. And then you can get them at Publix, and they're really the same, but if you want to be authentic. So anyway, I'm dumping a can of drained, yes, thank you, into the food processor. I'm adding, I guess I'll just pour from here. I'm adding about a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Now, one of the things I find when I make this is there are times when it's too thick. And so I'll add a little bit more olive oil. I'll add some water just to get it to the consistency I want. It doesn't really dramatically change the flavor too much unless you start getting heavy-handed with the olive oil. You want to use tahini For my entire cooking career, I've been using this stuff. This stuff, when you buy it, all the sesame substance settles. Like, you know how peanut butter settles? Well, the sesame in this settles. And so you just have to learn how to work with this. I like it, but for this class, I decided that I would buy what they recommended at the Lebanese store, and that was this brand, Al Kanater. This stuff is much more liquid. And so I always want to stir it up just to make sure nothing's settled, but this has no solid anything on the bottom. A third of a cup. Couple of cloves of garlic, again, however you prefer. I find that sometimes the garlic doesn't get broken up in the food processor, so I will, just like when I was tasting, same technique, I'll just chop it up just real coarse, just to give the processor a helping hand. And then we've got 1 lemon zested. I show this only because some people don't know. This is a microplane, and this is a microplane. These are both the same tooth, the same grater. This one is the one that most chefs keep in their knife bag. These cutting blades are actually pretty sharp. But anyway, you use this to zest a lemon, and I've juiced a lemon, and I wanted to show you this too. I don't know if you can make it out. This is a reamer that I found. I don't remember the company that makes it, but it's called the Octo Reamer, and it's and I just thought this was such a cool gadget that I had to keep it, and it works really well. It works the same as those wooden reamers, but it's fun. I pull the octopus out of the drawer instead of a boring drab wooden reamer. And lemon it adds a really nice quality to the hummus. Sometimes I add even more lemon juice. And a half teaspoon salt. And let it roll. See that this is a little too thick, so I'm adding some water. But the one thing you want to do, I find that I like it creamy. When I was in Lebanon, and also I worked in Palestine, and in both places, their hummus was really creamy, and mine was not. That's where we stand now. Not the horse race. I'm going to give this to my assistant. Yeah. So there's sumac on the recipe. Yes. That's a garnish. And sumac is a berry. It's a red berry that they dry and convert to a powder. And it's got a citrus quality to it. I learned this from working overseas. When you put it in a bowl, and you can use a wider bowl than this, you want to kind of create a moat. And in that moat, I knew there was a reason I want. I have a nice little olive oil bottle with a spout, but I didn't bring it. But you can just pour a thin line of olive oil into that moat. You can, this is what I learned in Palestine. They always put just a few whole chickpeas on the top. And then you just sprinkle a little bit of sumac over the top. And it just makes a nice presentation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I don't know, hopefully you can make that out. Last but not least are the seasoned pita. So these are freshly baked pita that we got from Hala this morning. They were warm. Onto the top of each of these. I've had these in restaurants and I was always impressed. And then I go, oh, there's really not, doesn't take a whole lot to do this. What I like to do is use different spices. That way, if you're entertaining, there are a variety of flavors and tasting experiences to be had. It's not just plain dry pita. You get a chance to go to Hala. They have even larger pita that are even thinner. So if you like thin flatbreads, buy the bigger ones. Okay, so they're all oiled. I'm going to make 4 different kinds. One, I'm taking the sumac. So this one will be a little bit citrusy, a little bit tangy. Okay. I'm taking one now. This, as I said, this is kosher salt, but if you can get flaked sea salt, it's better. Sprinkling a little bit of salt. Reading on my counter, and I forgot to use it. On the Lebabnon dip, when it's finished, garnish it with a sprinkle of cayenne. And I forgot.
Called you.
That's a sprinkle?
Yeah, it's pretty. Isn't it pretty?
Yeah.
Okay. Find out for you, but I have no idea off the top of my head. I can tell you about the flavor. Come on.
My one.
So when you buy these new jars and they have the stupid little thing on the top, I always take them off. But I thought it would cooperate. What's that?
Oh, okay.
That's just cumin and salt.
Okay.
Okay. Then I've got one. These are black and white sesame seeds. So we're going to put basically an equal amount. I'm using the 2 varieties. It's more for color and presentation. I mean, you could just do plain old white sesame seeds, but you know, that's McDonald's hamburger rolls. So we got a little of both. And so you can already see, you know, we've got quite a variety. And then I've got, let me make sure I'm picking up the right thing. Yeah. We've got Zatar. Sprinkle this. Now, I will tell you that in Lebanon, they make a dish called Manakish. And Manakish, usually they're bigger. They're the bigger flatbreads. They're like, I call them Lebanese pizzas because they're just the flatbread, oil, and Zatar. They use Zatar a lot. This is effectively a small Manakish. But they're very tasty. You can get them with cheese. You can get them with other things on them. And you can, if you have spices you really like, you could probably do one with mint. You could probably do one with, I don't know, whatever your favorite spices are, just to add some, okay, I know I'm with a bunch of French speakers and I'm going to screw this up. So je ne sais quoi? But you know, take this, put it in the, under the broiler until it's toasted. You want to keep an eye on it. Every oven's a little bit different. I've got mine down, so I pretty much know how long this takes, but keep an eye on it. So while those things are baking, I want to just talk to you about a few other foods and ingredients that you might be curious about. There is this stuff called pomegranate molasses. It's a very important ingredient in a lot of Lebanese cooking. They basically take the pomegranate arrows and they boil them down and add a little bit of sweetener and lemon juice and make a syrup out of it. It's really good. You can get that at the Lebanese stores. You can make great cocktails with it too. And there's also tzatziki, which is a sauce which you can use with falafel. And that's yogurt, garlic, and mint. It's really good. It's not that far off from the dip that we made tonight. One of the dishes, I don't make it because I'm not a big fan, is called kitty. And they are these little football-shaped things that are, it's meat wrapped in a bulgur wheat mixture. And they're very popular. And I highly recommend you try them because it may be something that you really like. Falafel, which you probably know about. That's just, it's a chickpea and spice blend. Those I make. They're not that hard. You can serve them with tabbouleh and hummus and tzatziki and a hot sauce or whatever. Put them in a pita. They're great. So our pita are now toasted. They puffed up a little bit. That's because they're fresh and they've still got air in them. It's interesting. The thinner ones, when they got this brown, they were crispier. So, because you're entertaining when you make these, just kind of would imagine that when you serve these, your guests will find that, oh, I like this one better, or no, I like that one better. And everybody's going to have preferences. So we've got our plate with the dip. Just realized these tongues. But you can serve it with the hummus, it doesn't matter. We've got another plate with veggies. Put the spring rolls on this plate too. No, I mean, just however you want to put it together. Oh my God. Oh, by the way, on the hummus, if any of you happen to get my book, in there I've got a recipe for hummus with peppadew peppers. If you've never had a peppadew pepper, find them. They're little round, red round peppers, and they're marinated, and they're a little sweet, they're a little tart, and they're a little hot. They're not real hot. They're like pepperoncini. You can just pop in your mouth. They're really good. And when you put them in with the chickpeas and the tahini and the garlic, it makes a fabulous hummus. You know, you can make hummus instead of chickpeas, use black beans. I mean, this is where they all come from. You know, all these different varieties you're seeing. Instead of using chickpeas, you can use cooked carrots, cooked beets. You know, mix and match. You can put a little bit of bean, a little bit of the veggies. You know, if you see something in the store, just know what it is. And they go, oh, I can make that at home. And you experiment and you find the balance you like. Make sense? I'm using a computer, not a camera. So I'm going to pick up the computer and take you over to our mezza table. So hopefully I'm not going to disrupt things too much. Spring rolls, the tabbouleh, Terry made, what do you call this, the meat thing?
Meat pie.
A meat pie
With phyllo dough.
with phyllo dough. We've got the hummus. We've got the, I just, right out of my head. The fatayr, that's these triangular pastries. We've got the Lebna dip, some olives, and then some, in the back, there are a walnut biscuit and some halva with pistachio. So all very Lebanese bits and pieces.
I told you it was going to be fast and furious, and some of you probably are still on your spring rolls. So thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it
And
so much.
I have to put this in as a shameless plug for those of you in Jacksonville. This is my book. If you like it, it's available at the Bookmark in Neptune Beach. Really great if you would support the local business, otherwise Amazon. But for those of you that aren't in Jacksonville, but there you go.
Well, thank you guys. If you have any other questions, you can email us at thealliance and I will give the questions to Jeff. And I hope you can go to Hala and see some of the great stuff that's happening there. But thank you, Jeff, so much. Now we're going to eat everything that's